Testing, testing. This is Stefano Virgilli from VOX podcast, and we have today connected with us Talash from InsectiPro and Diane Ha, our co-host. Hi, Diane. How are you? Hi, Talash.
I'm doing good.
I'm good.
Thanks, Stefano. So really quick on Talash, I found out about her through a pitch that she did last week. She's one of the participants and also walked away with 25K in investments.
Congratulations.
And so this is Talash Huijbers. She is the founder of InsectiPro, and you can check them out at InsectiPro.com, InsectiPro. And really briefly, how I would describe, or what I would describe they do is she's tackling the difficult food security problem that exists in Africa through her bug farm. Now, let me pass the floor to her so she can talk a little bit more about that. How did it start? You know, what got you into bugs?
So our story actually strangely starts with fish. When I graduated from university in 2018, I have a bachelor's in agriculture. I thought that fish would be the next frontier in livestock production. So we started looking into how can we mass produce fish. But when we were looking into it and breaking down the costs, the most expensive part of fish production is the feed. So feed makes up, in general animal terms, more than 70% of the cost of production. But in terms of fish, it's around 80 to 90 here in Kenya. So we were like, why would we grow fish when it's not affordable unless you can mass produce already in the first year? So we're like, what is making animal feed so expensive? So when you break animal feed down into the components, carbohydrates, nutrients, minerals, fats, and proteins are really, really expensive here in Kenya. They make up around 60 to 70% of the cost of the total animal feed. So we thought, why not grow protein? And then from there, my father, we grow biological insects because we have a very big flower farm here in Limuru. So we already knew a bit about insects. And if you look into Europe, crickets are trending a lot right now. You find them in a lot of dishes. There are a lot of pop-up restaurants based around cricket production. In Asia, they're also really popular eating edible insects. So then we looked into crickets, but when you're looking into crickets, all corners of the internet are whispering, black soldier fly, black soldier fly, black soldier fly. So we're like, why does this keep on popping up? So we thought, let's take a look at the black soldier fly. And we started in November of 2018 with 2 kilos total. And now we're at around 3 tons production per day.
Really interesting. And so basically it's edible insects, or what's the purpose?
Our biggest insect right now is a black soldier fly, and it's for animal feed. So it's a new protein component of animal feed.
Because I read about the crickets and they are making flour out of crickets, right? They are using it,
yeah.
But that's for human consumption. Whereas for you, you only focus on animal consumption.
Yeah, the reason we focus on animal feed is the black soldier fly eats organic waste. So we are also one of the biggest garbage collectors in Nairobi right now. We have around 10 to 20 tons of organic waste coming in every day, and the flies can eat that, and legally seen, that is where they can go, is into animal feed.
Very interesting. This is a very new trend, or something that, I mean, it's something that you studied for sure. So it has been around, I guess, for a few years, but it's becoming more mainstream now. It's because of the attention of the media and the press about it.
Yeah, there are quite a few big companies in the world. There's Agri-Protein and Protix and Terra and Enviroflight, and those 4 companies all just got huge investments in the last 2 to 3 years. Protix got around, I think it was around 150 million they raised. So ever since then, it's kind of blowing up. And also because they can eat organic waste and they're a good alternative to fish meal and soy, both of which are high demand, low supply.
And tell us, these are all black soldier flies that the companies are breeding?
Yeah.
And they have a specific geography where they can be Bread or?
We are really lucky that they are tropical insects. So they breed really well here in Kenya, equator weather. But then other companies such as Agri-Protein in South Africa and Protix in the Netherlands do it in an indoor system.
Oh, so their cost would be higher.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask why you were saying with all the research that you've done, you heard whispers of black soldier flies. But what? So tell us more. Why is that a good bug to breed?
I think because first they have a very short life cycle. So they're harvest ready in Kenya in 12 days. So from egg to market product is a 12-day cycle. A full cycle to lay eggs again is a month. While in terms of crickets, it can take up to 3 months, 3 to 6 months, depending on the cricket you're breeding. So short life cycle. Also, when they start off as worms, but then they become flies. And when they turn into a fly, they don't have a mouth. So they are not vectors for disease. So they're not able to pass on diseases, and that's why they're so popular. Also, because they don't have a mouth, they die within 7 days. So if they all escaped, it's not like a locust invasion, they would all die naturally within a few days. And also, they're very high in protein. So that's why they're very popular for animal feed.
Perfect. Wow, it sounds like a risk-free, fast breeding protein.
Relatively.
So who are your customers right now? So you're breeding this for livestock, yeah? What kind of livestock would be best to eat this, and what kind of customers, clients do you have around Kenya or maybe outside of Kenya?
Right now we're fully focused in Kenya. So we have conducted our own tests on pigs and chickens, but it's also shown that fish can eat it. So we have a very big project starting in August based on BSF production for catfish growth. And cows are a bit difficult. You have to defat the meal for a cow to be able to eat it, but we are on our way to finding out what that technology is. So right now, our biggest customers are feed millers. I think more than 80 or 90% of our production goes to feed millers who include it as an ingredient. But I'd say maybe around 10% would go directly to farmers who mix at home.
Yep.
Stefano, go ahead.
Can I jump in? Very interesting. I've always been super excited about agri-tech in general, and now that you start talking about technology, obviously it gets even more interesting, of course, because I don't understand much about biology, I would say. Is this biology that we're talking about, right? Biotech, is that correct to say that you are a biotech company, or agri-tech? Which of the two is the definition you go by?
I think we're at the intersection because we have to make sure the flies stay alive. Their biology is very important to us, but also what's very important to us is developing the technology around them so that they're able to produce on time. They're ready for the market. We have defatting technology. So I think it's more the intersection.
That's very interesting. And the reason why I'm so excited about this industry is that because there are not many young people like you that wants to jump into this not so sexy industry. They rather be digital marketer or something else that is more sexy and you can do from the beach and being a digital nomad. Whereas in your case, you actually have to put in the hard work, I guess.
Yeah.
And I mean, going to collect garbage and feed flies with garbage is not something super sexy, but definitely something that the world needs. And I guess you're super attractive to investors because they want to claim a stake of your business. Is that correct? How many investors have you had so far?
We're very picky. Right now, we only have one main investor, but we've been approached by over 20 different investors. Last year, we felt like we were too young and we were still in the growth stage. So it was a lot more risk, but this year we're a lot more assured of our production and we have a lot more proof of concept. So that's why I mentioned we are in discussion with a few investors now and seeing which road to take.
And generally, these investors that you're talking to or you have talked to or they approach you, they are from Africa specifically or they are from all over the world?
All over the world. We've had investors approach us from Mexico, from Japan, a lot of Europeans, actually not that many African investors, a lot more from outside outside the continent.
Very interesting. And when they approach you, they tend to want to have equities in the company, or what type of structure do they suggest? Is joint venture, they want to bring the business over there, or they want you to carry on doing what you're doing? They want you to develop more the technology, or they want you to expand capacity, entering new markets? What's the intention that generally investors have when they approach you?
Everybody wants equity. Not a single person has approached us, but that's why we're also so picky. If you're giving away equity, you really have to know who the investor is going to be, because they're there for a long time. The investor that we currently like wants both expansion of production, which makes sense. Right now, we're not even producing less than 0.5% of market needs. So if we were producing 5%, then we would be good by the end of the year. And they want us to expand to new markets where there's garbage, InsectiPro can come and set up, because we've taken a very low tech, a high tech, low tech, like our system is very Africa proof, to put it in air quotes. So expansion to new markets and expansion of capacity and export. A lot of people are asking for export to Europe.
Interesting. And so basically you are beyond schedule. The market is too big for you to address at the moment, I guess. You need to grow. And that's where investment comes in. The more you get investment, the more you can grow your capacity. You say 3 tons per day now. What's your target capacity?
Our target capacity for the current facility that we're almost finished building is that facility will be able to produce 10 tons a day. We are finishing this facility. We are on track to finish it in June. Then we will start building our second facility in Kisumu, one of the big cities in Kenya. And that facility output will be 60 tons a day. So in total in Kenya, we hope to have 70 tons a day in the next 5 years, and then looking at other markets and seeing what's possible there.
That means that you will be multiplying your capacity by 20 times, and your target at the moment is you increase your capacity by 10 times by the end of the year. So you want to go from 3 to 30 this year, is that correct? From 0.5 to 5% you were mentioning, right?
That's the market that we want to, that's our share of the market that we're going for in total. Our goal this year is 3 to 5, and next year 5 to 10. Okay. In this facility while we build our second facility.
Interesting. And what's the approach between low tech, high tech? Meaning that the implementation of the business is low tech, but then what you have done, the underpinning layer is high tech, because you know what's happening in the background, but whoever else start working at your farm, I guess it's called farm, not factory, then they will be able to roll out the system quite easily. They don't need very high education. Is that correct?
For example, a lot of people in the world, they grow in crates, but the way we organize our crates is very simple and easy to copy. But for example, the hardest thing I believe to get right is the breeding. So to get the flies to lay new eggs and lay a lot of eggs in one go, we are very good in that. But we've Africa proofed it, so it's not, electricity. We're not reliant on electricity that much. We're not reliant on power. Power for us is, we try to keep away from power as much as possible. So that's why we've kept it a bit low tech, not high tech, super fancy sensors and everything. But our system can operate without power, but our breeding system is not copyable. That's a good English word.
Very interesting. Diane, you have any question?
Yeah, so you mentioned about your current or your future location in Kisumu, current facility in Limuru, yeah? Wanted to ask if, like, why did you pick those specific places? And I guess maybe another leading question or another follow-up question to that is, how does the farm look like?
We started in Limuru because my dad's farm is here. So we started with a very small pilot of around the 2 kilos, and that's very quickly grew out of control. So we needed our own space. But the reason we stayed in Limuru is because the temperature is really cold. It's a lot easier to put heat into a system than it is to take heat out of the system. So whenever it's too cold, we just have our heaters go on. And then whenever it's too hot, we can open the vents. But if you're in an area that's too hot, it's a lot harder to get the heat to go out of the system. You need a lot more cooling material and that stuff. And then we chose Kisumu because there is a lot of waste there, and waste that we like in large quantities. And then we're doing everything right now in greenhouses. So very simple, easy, like the flower greenhouses, but then ours are tunnels. Yeah.
Interesting. So it looks like you may be growing roses or something like that until you step in there and see what's actually in the crates or whatnot.
Yeah, we have the crates you can't really see because the bugs like to go under. But when I scoop like this across, a lot of people get really shocked. But my favorite room is the place where we have all the cages for the flies, because I personally think the sound is very relaxing. You know, when they flutter their wings, it's like
buzzing everywhere.
Not like mosquitoes, but a nice wing flap, like many birds together.
Interesting. Now, I guess, okay, cheeky question. Have you or have any person that you know, have they actually like eaten the flies before? I know we're talking about feed consumption, food for feed, but you know, like it's protein still, right?
Actually, a few months ago, I was in England and I met the British team who's doing what we're doing, but then in London, and they all happily, you know, they eat the dried insect. And I was like, no, that's not for me. But then the day that we got our dryer installed, it was, you know, it was a big moment. And then my COO said, okay, everybody who's here has to eat a dried insect. And it wasn't that bad. It was they have like a nutty flavor. But it's just because I know what they grow in. I'm like, they're very clean, but still it's just a little bit of not for me.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay, so how much do you charge? Is it like, I mean, how do you sell it in the sack, or like corn, or how does it work?
Yeah, just like corn, they go away in sacks and we sell it per kilo.
Got it. And what is the price per kilo? Only if you're willing to disclose.
Yeah, of course, $1.20.
Oh, wow.
$1, yeah.
Okay, so can you talk about, like, you know, what is it? Why are black soldier flies more, you know, better feed than other, you know, say corn or what else, whatnot, for chickens and pigs and whatnot?
So the two comparison products are soy and fish meal. So the problem with soy here is that it has to be imported. Africa in general, and not a very big soy growing nation. Yeah, there's Zambia that grows a bit of soy, a bit in the central and a bit in the west, but not in large quantities. So a lot of soy is brought in from outside, which, if you've lived in Kenya long enough, you know that any government regulation can be a complete nightmare. So if your container comes in at the port and it's stuck there for 2 or 3 weeks, what are you going to do? And then the second product is fish meal. And fish meal actually, as we discovered over the past year, is very problematic. So a lot of fish meal in Kenya comes from Lake Victoria. And Lake Victoria right now, they have a hyacinth problem. So the whole lake is covered in leaves. So there's not enough light getting down for the fish to multiply. And what they do, or what happens a lot in this region, is overfishing. So if you take out all the fish from the sea, then there are not enough fish for repopulation. So the fish stocks are dwindling and dwindling and dwindling. So what happens a lot is also fish meal is imported from Uganda and Tanzania. But the problem we've seen is that it comes in very adulterated. So it'll come in with sand, with shells to add weight. So a lot of feed millers want it pure, but you cannot get it in pure because the companies there refuse. So dwindling of supplies locally, or it's not available locally, and it's adulterated. In terms of protein, we're higher than soy. Soy operates around 44%. Black soldier flies around 48 to 52%. And soy is always, not soy, fish meal is the highest, it's around 69%. But what makes this a comparable product, especially to fish meal, is that the amino acids are the same. So it's like fish meal, but cheaper, and it's grown on waste. So as long as there's waste, we can produce.
What and where did you study?
I studied international food and agribusiness in Haas University of Applied Sciences in the Netherlands.
The universities and the education system in Africa is already teaching this type of disciplines as well, or you have to cherry pick where you're going to study?
Actually, the International Center for Insects, so the global headquarters is here in Nairobi, and that has helped us a lot. We tell everybody we are not scientists. It's half trial and error and half really good research coming together on our end. But anything we want tested, they've been able to do for us. And they have a lot. Their mandate is as many Africans as possible. So there are Cameroonians there, Senegalese people. So they have a very big base for knowledge and also for researchers to come and do their knowledge. And then while we were looking around and seeing, you know, who has a colony, where can we get our first eggs from, the Jomo Kenyatta University here in Nairobi has a very big program. And as we discovered later on the year, in Ghana and in Zimbabwe, they have very big departments for insect production because they eat a lot of insects. They eat the really fat worm that, you know, you see in the Lion King, the one that they like, the green one. That's the Mopane worm.
The
That's
juicy
one.
one.
Exactly. It's called the Mopane worm. That's one that they eat.
When I used to stay in Uganda, I remember I tried the grasshoppers. There is the season of the grasshoppers. And I remember that I've seen how they collect the grasshoppers. It's very light intense, electricity intense, right? I remember at night they set up this plastic sheet and a lot of light to attract them, and then they kind of wrap them up and then fry them and and sell them out. How did you manage to keep your business Africa proof, meaning like power continuity proof?
So a lot of our sensors are loose, so we can hang them up, and then in 2 weeks we have to take them down and charge them again. And then all our blowers, we don't have that much big heavy machinery, but what we're doing right now is, it's really funny. We were talking about installing wind electricity, wind powers, because this area can be very windy, but we looked at how expensive it is to install a windmill and we're like, no. So now we're looking at solar, and we're looking at creating biogas, our own biogas, to run our machinery so that we're not reliant on the grid. Because if the grid stops, your production shouldn't stop. They're live animals, so they shouldn't have to suffer because there's no electricity. And we made sure that the rest of our system is a lot more manual labor intensive than using robots and all those things, because in Kenya it's affordable to use people rather than machines.
Well, that's so fascinating. I really hope that everyone will watch this episode of the podcast, especially among those. You're probably a millennial as well. You look very young. So probably among those that are millennials, but they think that they must have a mobile app to do business. And it's so refreshing to listen to your point of view and how you're making, I'm quite fast with numbers. So you say $1.20 per kilo means that you are exceeding 100,000 a month. So you are in the millions of dollars of revenues, and you have zero download of your mobile app, basically, right? So yeah. It's really refreshing to see this type of innovation without necessarily forcing innovation. You definitely don't need blockchain. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're probably not thinking of implementing AI or machine learning. You just have to do your trial and error, mixing it with what you know it works, but still there is a lot of room to come up with your own recipe. It's like as if you knew the ingredients and you are the chef. You come up with a recipe that is very difficult to copy. And so that's your protection in terms of against competition, right? It's like you have your own trademark, so your intellectual property has been developed by trial and error. And now if you want to copy us, good luck. It's gonna take you time or money.
Exactly. Everything we've done here is trial and error. And we made the mistake last year of the first trial worked. So we were like, let's implement it in everything. And then 3 weeks later, we were seeing really big drops in production. So from that, we learned if it works in 1, we try in 100. From the 100, if it works in 100, we can try in 1,000. But we had to slow it down a little bit. Super. But it's just it's also just what you said. Or what I personally believe is, before you need a doctor, a lawyer, or your phone, you need to eat. So food will always, it's the most unattractive industry, but it is the biggest necessity for life. and nobody can argue with me on that one.
Absolutely. I remember back in 2011 when I started doing business in Indonesia, I was so keen to enter into any agricultural business, but it's so difficult. Back then when I was in Italy, I was helping out a friend of mine that was growing berries. But how can someone come in as an angel investor and find deals? Like probably at this point in time, you have too many investors that are knocking at your doors. But for someone like me or Diane, if we want to make a small contribution and we want to participate in this business of agri-tech or biotech, how can an angel investment approach this field?
There are plenty of other agri-tech ideas being developed right now. And agri-tech can also get very expensive because we're not producing, to make impact, you need to have big production in this industry. So because we're not focused on producing 100, we're focused on producing 100,000. So angel investors, what we also look for in our investors is that they also have to come with good ideas, or they have to come with something to contribute. So if you say, I can come in and once I understand what you're doing, I can help you design strategy, then we are completely interested in that. Because my focus right now is the bugs have to grow. They have to grow the way we want them to grow. And our team is built around, we have a product innovation manager, and her job is just, how can we take this crate that they grow in and get it to its maximum production? If we cut out a hole in the middle, what does that do to the bugs? We have 2 scientists hopefully joining our team soon so that they can also take over a lot more of the biology of the insect production. And we just believe that it's not just about the money, it's also about the experience and the other strategy and those kinds of things that you can bring to the business.
Fantastic. Diane, we've taken so much time. It's about half an hour now, or no, a bit more than half an hour. Do you have any questions? I know you always want to ask about COVID-19.
Yes, I have two questions. I mean, but one of them can be short. So the first one, COVID. So with the borders, closed and everything right now, and a lot of our food coming from being imported, I can see how maybe your business is being impacted in potentially a positive way. Can you talk about the COVID impact, and then later I'll ask you the shorter question.
Both negative and positive, because like you said, positively, everybody wants to hold on to their food. Before they put this the ban in place of movement between Nairobi and that, Tanzania and Uganda had closed their borders a lot earlier. So that's impacting the supply of fish meal coming into the country. So we've noticed a lot more ask for our product. A lot more people are asking us, when can we have access? Put us on the list, put us on the list, put us on the list. And we're like, calm down. We have a system. We first need to fulfill the orders that we have before we try, but that's why we're really pushing on growing production right now. And then negatively, a lot of companies, like for example, EABL, the big East African breweries who make Tusker, they shut down. So our stock of what they were producing is dwindling low. So we took a lot of beer waste from them to put into our system. Oh. So right now our big focus for the past 2 weeks, or my big focus apart from bugs have to grow, is who else can be a good waste partner
Looking
for us.
For waste. Wow,
Looking
waste.
For more waste.
Would imagine that would be your problem.
Yeah.
Especially in Kenya.
Big quantities of waste. The little market lady with 5 mangoes doesn't interest me, but what it's made us do is we've diversified a lot in waste, which is both good and bad. It means we have to invest a lot more time into going to pick up this waste, but it's good, which it means that we have a lot more our insects are eating a lot more of a balanced diet right now.
Including beer, actually.
Including beer, yeah.
No more beer though. No.
We have a few tons left. Yeah.
They better cherish that. So my last question to you, looking forward for future. So now you're focused on the black soldier fly. Are you thinking about any other, or is that, you want to get to scale first before even thinking about potentially any other bugs to breed?
Actually, last year in June, we started piloting crickets because we still see in Kisumu, in that area of Kenya, they eat a lot of insects. They eat the flying termites and they eat a lot of crickets. So demand in Kenya is already there. There's a company and they're like, can you produce 4 tons for us? And we're like, we can trial and see. But also, again, a lot of requests from the European side because they're making a lot more insect-based products, for crickets. We're also looking at mealworms because they're easy to grow and what they like to eat we have in large quantities in Kenya, sugarcane waste. And we're looking at grasshoppers because of the popularity in Uganda. We're looking for a different way of growing them rather than having one big light sheet and crossing your fingers and praying. But also grasshoppers have a lot of folic acid. So insects are interesting because they grow things that is not like found in a plant. So folic acid is very important for pregnant women. So if we can grow grasshoppers and extract it from that and be able to make more medicines locally or just have it available in larger quantities, then you're also doing a big plus to society.
Wow, that's fascinating. Stefano, go ahead and
Absolutely
close us out.
fascinating. Let's give to Talash the last minute to talk to our audience and who you would like to meet in our audience, ideally. If it's we understood you were looking for waste producers for sure, probably some sort of investment as well. I know that you recently have done a pitch, as Diana shared at the beginning. How about in terms of clients, or who else would you like to talk to? And you have the floor for the last minute of the podcast.
Okay, first, thank you for having me. We are currently, like I said, Waste Partners is very important for us. Not just here, we're looking at in the next 3 years also expanding to Rwanda and Uganda. So if anybody's listening from there, email me. And then in terms of investment, we are looking, like I said, for investors that are more impact investors who are passionate about this, but also can bring fresh ideas to the table about how we approach this. My team is young and ambitious, but our board of directors is people who have a good amount of life experience. So if you have a good amount of life experience and you think you bring something interesting to the table, we can add you to our advisory committee, who we listen to, but we listen to only the things that we like to hear. And then what else? Thank you for listening. And I think don't be afraid of industries such as agriculture. We all need to eat at the end of the day.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing all this precious information and about your success story through trial and error. Thank you very much, Talash, for being with us. And thank you, Diane, for introduction.
Thank you. Thank you, Talash, for your time. Looking forward to actually eating crickets at some point.
Feel free to pass by. We live in Limuru.
Limuru. Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.